I'm Natasha Kirchak, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Israeli army prevents a Palestinian terror attack. UNESCO makes some very different comments about the Temple Mount, and Israel is recognized for having created 5 of the most innovative products in the world. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Earlier today, a Palestinian terrorist attempted a stabbing attack at Huwara just outside of the Shomron Regional Brigade headquarters in the West Bank. He was shot on sight. The terrorist was looking to stab a soldier, but no Israelis have been reported injured. Though the assailant has been shot, his current condition is not known, and he's been evacuated to the Rabin Medical Center in Petah Tikva. The Israeli Defense Forces are now investigating the incident. This marks the second stabbing attack in as many days. Monday morning on Holocaust Remembrance Day, a female soldier was stabbed near the Kalandia checkpoint just north of Jerusalem. Seemingly true to his word, U.S. President Donald Trump is indeed putting America first when it comes to his administration's foreign aid budget. But it looks like there is one organization right here in the Middle East that isn't actually being affected. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story. Aaron, what is the news out of Washington?
Well, basically, a proposed foreign aid budget was leaked from the White House, and it basically either severely reduces or entirely cuts the United States foreign aid financial contributions to practically every country and aid program on Earth except for the Palestinian Authority.
Wow, let's check out your report.
According to the document obtained by the Foreign Policy magazine, the proposed financial aid to the West Bank and Gaza has been increased by just under 5%, from $205 million in 2017 to $215 million in 2018. As for the rest of the world, 41 countries' health funding was cut, and the Bureau for Food Security is set to lose 70% of their current funding. Funding for development assistance would be cut completely for at least 77 countries, and $1 billion would be taken from the battle against climate change. The budget needs to pass through Congress before being ratified and is likely to have a lot of opposition, even from conservative lawmakers. The decision to cut aid for all but the Palestinian Authority has not yet been explained, but the move comes just ahead of the May 3rd meeting between Donald Trump and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in Washington, D.C. Abbas and several other high-level PA officials arrived in Washington on Sunday, and it's not yet clear whether or not the budget proposal is on the list for discussion, but the officials are expected to talk about reviving the stalled Middle East peace process, something Abbas has suggested could be possible under the Trump administration.
Meanwhile, former U.S. Representative of New Mexico Heather Wilson has just been tapped by the Trump administration to become the new head of the Air Force Department at the Pentagon. Her appointment comes with a bit of a shock to Israel, though, and you have more on this, correct, Aaron?
Yeah. Years ago, Wilson made some controversial comments in a book that she authored about what she describes as the lawful use of force by national liberation organizations. These comments, however, were becoming favorites by pro-Palestine and anti-Israel groups all over the world.
Let's check it out.
Yeah. In her book, published in 1988, entitled International Law and the Use of Force by National Liberation Movements, she states, quote, "In this post-colonial world, the denial of self-determination is generally considered to be an evil of such magnitude that the use of force to secure it may be justified, and that the use of force to deny the free exercise of a people's right to self-determination is contrary to the principles of international law," end quote. Despite the fact that these comments were made prior to her political career and that she never used the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as an example, pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel activists have often cited Wilson's work to justify Palestinian terrorism. Others, however, say her statements are too general and don't hold water. In response to the Times of Israel, senior fellow on foreign policy at the Brookings Institution, Michael O'Hanlon, for example, said, quote, "I don't think one can be so categorical. Nation-states do not welcome all international liberation or independence movements or tolerate violence from them. We wouldn't do so here," end quote. Former Rep. Heather Wilson could not be reached for comment.
The head of the United Nations UNESCO cultural body is once again contradicting her own agency. Irina Bokova not only shot down UNESCO attempts to erase Jewish ties to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, but factually identified it as the holiest place in Judaism. Bokova says any attempt to deny or conceal any of the Jewish, Christian, or Muslim traditions counters the reasons the Temple Mount was included on UNESCO's World Heritage List in the first place. Last October, Bokova publicly opposed the controversial UNESCO resolution that blatantly ignores Jewish and Christian links to Jerusalem's holy sites. She said the city's heritage is indivisible and that each of its communities has a right to the explicit recognition of its own history. Meanwhile, UNESCO shows no sign of heeding its own director and is set to debate another anti-Israel resolution next week. This one reportedly denies a Jewish connection to the Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron and Rachel's tomb in Bethlehem. It also apparently condemns Israel for the deaths of children in Gaza. The administration of U.S. President Donald Trump is said to be working furiously behind the scenes to defeat the measure. It's believed the White House has ordered all of its envoys in UNESCO member countries to convey the U.S. wish for a no vote against the motion. Trump feels that the draft is not only one-sided, but also counterproductive to his efforts to revive the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. Joining me today in the studio is Dr. Michael L. Wise, a physicist and expert in mathematical model techniques, who has actually been conducting independent demographic research on the West Bank. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So this is very interesting. Now, your numbers differ from the expected numbers touted by the U.S. State Department and the United Nations, correct?
Correct.
Now, why is that the case?
The United Nations, the CIA, and the State Department take their numbers directly from the Palestinian Authority, and those are numbers which were calculated by the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. In fact, we met with people at the CIA and the State Department several years ago, and we asked them if they were interested in the actual real numbers. They looked at our work, they were very impressed, but they indicated that their mandate is to accept data released by local authorities. And the people in charge there had no right or opportunity to update or upgrade the data that they publish.
So how off are these numbers, and why is that the case?
They're significantly out of balance. The numbers that are generally quoted, both by demographers in Israel, people at the Hebrew University and at Haifa University, are taken directly from the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. The Israel Central Bureau of Statistics.
Okay, I mean, I'm interested in understanding how you independently gather the research, but again, I mean, the question here is, why is this number being puffed up, as you're saying it is being puffed up?
Well, I think we all remember that Yasser Arafat had several weapons in his portfolio, and one of them was that the womb of the Arab woman would eventually destroy and bury the Jewish state. In order to justify those claims, the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics started putting forth data which was totally fantastic. It was imaginative.
Now, so how have you independently gathered research?
Okay. Going back to 2004, I joined with Bennett Zimmerman, another American, not a demographer, but a student, Harvard Business School, etc. And Yoram Ettinger helped us collect data. And we did an analysis which determined that the population as of the end of 2005 on the West Bank was approximately 1.4 million people, rather than the 2.5 or 2.6 million people that were publicized by the Palestinian Authority. And the process is actually not that complicated. In demography, if you have a starting point, which was the number that the Israel Central Bureau of Statistics had calculated, as of 1995 was the latest number that we had, you then count the number of births, subtract the number of deaths, count the number of people who enter the country, and subtract the number of people who were left. And each year you can determine what the actual real population was. Okay?
Interesting.
And we did that each year from 1997, 98, 99, and we do that on an ongoing basis. And we can verify those numbers by checking school records, by checking population voter records. We get information with respect to entry and exit from the Israel border authorities, and you come up with a number.
Now, your claim and your findings are that the Palestinian population in the West Bank is inflated by 1 million people, correct?
Correct.
So this is a question here. Does it mean that Israel can annex the West Bank without seriously compromising its own Jewish demographic?
Well, as we're sitting here today, the ratio of Jewish population to Arab population, taking Green Line Israel and the West Bank, is a little better than 2 to 1. It's 67% Jewish, 33% non-Jewish. Okay. About 2 years ago, that number turned a corner. Namely, there's positive demographic Jewish momentum. Namely, year to year, on an ongoing basis, the percentage of the Jewish population is increasing. And that is important data for anyone making decisions as to how to deal and how to resolve issues with respect to the West Bank, to have the facts. It's kind of remarkable that there are people walking around today, and I got calls from people who were sitting in AIPAC a few weeks ago, and they said, Mike, what's going on? There's someone from the Bougie Herzog who was making a speech at AIPAC in Washington, proclaiming that as of today, there's a majority of Arabs versus Jews in Yehuda Shomron, the West Bank, and Israel. Therefore, one must conduct policy in a certain way. Okay?
Right. Well, it seems, as though the work that you're doing is going to be very eye-opening to the world. The question is whether people are going to take these numbers as the truth, right? Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
In the shadow of Israel's annual national commemoration of the Holocaust, a new study is taking a look at what efforts Eastern Europe has taken to restore property stolen from Jews, and let's just say it's not looking that great. The analysis specifically focused on 46 countries, all of which agreed to make such restitution in the 2009 Terezin Declaration. While some of the states have made substantial progress to honor their pledges, others have not. Western Europe undertook measures almost immediately after World War II to return belongings plundered from their Jewish citizens. But post-war communist regimes did not. Sometimes they seized more Jewish property and even some that had already been given back. Poland and Bosnia were particularly criticized. Neither has enacted any laws to address the issue. The largest percentage of heirless property is in Poland, which correspondingly had the highest percentage of deaths in its Jewish population. 90% of Polish Jews were murdered during the Holocaust, amounting to half of the 6 million deaths. In the case that heirless property reverted to state ownership, the Terezin Declaration recommends it be allocated for impoverished survivors and Holocaust education. The study conducted by the European Shoah Legacy Institute determined that this has mostly not been implemented, concluding that much remains to be done to right the injustice. There's some good news for liberal arts majors out there who are looking for work and just keep on being told that their degrees won't help them find a job. Israel's Mossad spy agency says it's hiring, and humanities majors have a one-up. A lot of people are surprised that the Mossad has a website. You're not going to find any state secrets there, but you can check out the want ads, and right now the Espionage Center is looking for you. Okay, relax. Well, that's if you have at least a bachelor's degree in any of the following disciplines: philosophy, communications, history, international relations, and many others like conflict resolution, Middle East, or security studies. The agency wants to recruit a new crop of intelligence officers with the possibility of long-term, versatile, and challenging careers. The available positions are in the different intelligence fields at the heart of the organization's activity. That includes influential roles in producing reports, formulating intelligence strategies, and operational recommendations. Earlier this year, the super secret spy agency launched an unprecedented public campaign to enlist new female intelligence gathering officers in possession of exceptional characters. I guess that explains why I haven't heard from some of my girlfriends lately. All right, Radiohead's upcoming performance in Israel is getting even closer, but not everybody is happy about it. Boycott activists are stepping up their campaign for the English rockers to cancel the show. All of the suspects, like musician Roger Waters, say the July 19th show must not go on. Longtime anti-Israel activist author Alice Walker and Archbishop Desmond Tutu are also joining the fray. They just added their signatures to dozens of other artists and public figures to a public letter demanding the boys in the Radiohead band disappoint their Israeli fan base by backing out. So far, the so-called cultural boycott of the Jewish state on behalf of the Palestinians has been an almost total failure. Many of the world's greatest stars who've defied the Israel bashing calls by taking to the Tel Aviv stage include Paul McCartney, the Rolling Stones, Elton John, and Bon Jovi. While the global BDS movement is trying to stop artists like Radiohead from performing in Israel, one Israeli duo is fighting back. Joining me today in the studio is Noam Jacobson and Gadi Weisbart, founding members of the Staying Alive comedy duo that brings the story of Israel to non-Israelis using laughter. Thank you guys so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so what what inspired you to start writing comedy in English in this beautiful country of Israel where Hebrew and Arabic are the languages of choice?
We have English background. I mean, my father is South African and his family is from England, right?
Yeah. We have a show in Hebrew that we're performing for a few years. There was one day that we talked about and we realized that both of us have been thinking about the situation in campuses mostly around the world and mainly in the US and Europe, and it bothered both of us. We really wanted to do something about it, and comedy is our language. This is what we can do. So we decided to do a show in English that will be funny, first of all funny, and then we'll confront the issues. We had great luck to join forces with the World Mizrahi, and we have an amazing writer-director called Sarel Peterman, and we have a show that we love, and we talk about the BDS movements and the biased media.
Well, I mean, comedy is one of the best ways, I think, to break down barriers. And I remember when I was in college, I can't remember the name of the comedian now, but he was a Muslim comedian who was talking about Israeli-Palestinian affairs, and it was amazing. It was just one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. At the end, everybody was hugging each other. It was a very positive experience. So
I've done for many years the Latma show, which was an online satire show. We've done like for 4 years. So
yeah, you can see. I mean, there's very visceral
online
reactions to. I mean, laughing is like the solution to everything, I think.
But and you remember it.
Right, you do remember it, that is for sure. So, Staying Alive, what inspired Staying Alive more specifically? And tell us about what Staying Alive entails.
I'll tell you, because we're talking about the story of Israel. And the story of Israel is very simple. In 1948, after the terrible Holocaust, we founded a state. And immediately, all the countries around us, 7 armies, attacked us. They tried to destroy us, but we decided that we are not giving up, that we are staying alive. In 1967, they tried again with all their might, but in 6 days, we won the war. We are staying alive. In 1973, in the middle of Yom Kippur, the highest holiday of the Jewish people, Egypt and Syria attacked us, but we are staying alive. 1982, attacks from Lebanon. Staying alive. 1991, dozens of rockets, of missiles land on Tel Aviv, a present from Saddam Hussein. Staying alive. In 1995, a Nobel Peace Prize and 200 suicide bombers. Staying alive. And in the last 15 years, we've got tens of thousands of rockets from Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Sinai, but we are staying alive. And right now, as we speak, thanks to the deal with the West, Iran is working on a nuclear weapon. But we look at the future, and we know that it is tragedy. What? No. Well, the family's gone and it can't go on. It's tragedy. No, Staying Alive.
But it's a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, but it's going to be okay.
But it's a nuclear bomb.
You're optimistic, you know.
It's a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, all right.
I'm sorry.
So things aren't always so funny in the end of the show. I mean, these are some difficult topics to talk about. I mean, making a nuclear bomb funny probably is not.
We're doing our best.
You're doing your best.
The situation is not easy in Israel. We know that. And we're not talking about right or left. It's not a matter of right or left. It's a matter of right or wrong.
Would you say that, I mean, this is what's interesting to me because I find commercials here, TV shows, the humor here is unbelievable. I mean, it really is funny and it stands out, I would say, in comparison to ads that you've seen in different countries around the world. Do you think that Israelis are perhaps more funny because of the fact that there is so much conflict here that we're dealing with? This is like a coping mechanism of sorts?
I think the Jewish nation has always known how to use humor as a weapon, and that's the best weapon we can have to cope with a very delicate situation. And yeah, I mean, we're trying to do it in a very delicate way.
Right.
But
it is comedy, and you know,
it is satire.
It is satire, and in satire you poke the strong.
Right.
We're not going after the weak. We're not going. You won't find in our show. We will not be making fun of Palestinians, but we will be making fun of the BDS leaders, and we're talking about the singers and the musicians who are trying to boycott Israel. Mm-hmm. And we have a character in our show called David Boycott, who is
boycott.
Yes.
No reference.
And he is actually he himself he said that he is half Jewish and half human, and which is saying nothing about him, but about the BDS.
Well, so
movement.
here's my question for you: for those of our viewers who would like to see one of your shows, when is your next show and where is it?
Definitely.
Yes.
Go.
We are doing tours in the U.S. We're performing a little bit in Israel, but the show is. We built it, we wrote it to be abroad. We want to go to campuses and to communities, Jewish and non-Jewish, around the world. And we are now working on building our tour.
Exactly, we're building it.
We're building tours.
All right, so we're going to have to keep up with you guys.
Okay.
You can anyone can contact us and bring us to them.
Staying Alive,
Perfect.
an Israeli comedy show on Facebook. That's our page.
There
and
we go.
Please contact us because we want to come.
All right, guys, I'm going to check you guys out myself on Facebook. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
It looks like Israel is truly becoming a hotbed of ingenuity. 5 of this year's top Thomas Edison Awards went to Israeli companies for having produced the most innovative products in the world. The Giro carry-on suitcase cruised through the competition to scoop up the gold medal. According to the judges, the Israelis created the world's first human traveler-centric companion bag by literally reinventing the wheel. The Cropex firm took home the silver for water conservation by producing the most sophisticated adaptive irrigation provider on the planet. Another silver medalist is the Tipa packaging firm that creates environmentally friendly, sustainable products. Harman's, a cybersecurity solution by the Harman Company, was awarded the Bronze Prize of Excellence for its cybersecurity solution for connected vehicles, as did the aptly named AngelSense GPS and alert device for children. The annual ceremony is named for the inventor Thomas Edison in recognition of the most outstanding game-changing ingenuity in the global economy. Now, here's something I'll bet you've never heard of before. More and more of Israel's emergency rescue teams are now saving lives while riding electric bicycles. Yes, you heard that right. These modern-day superheroes fight death by cycling to emergency scenes. Their bikes swerve, swoop, and zoom into narrow areas like alleys, promenades, and open markets that are impossible for ambulances to reach. 1,000 volunteers known as the Life Riders are equipped with their own medical kits and resuscitation equipment. The cycling squad's administering of immediate treatment saves precious seconds, which is sometimes all it takes to make the difference between the life and death for the patients. The Israeli initiative is the first time electric bike riders have ever been deployed as first responders on an organized basis anywhere in the world. And it certainly makes sense, doesn't it?
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by the University of Haifa, Hebrew Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Even though Israeli airlines are having trouble keeping up with travel demands, it's no reason to stop traveling. Every day, thousands and thousands of people pack their bags and come through the airports of the Holy Land. So today's word is mizvada, meaning suitcase. Mizvadot, or suitcases, come in every shape and size, and the way Israelis travel, it seems like half of the country practically lives out of a mizvada. Sometimes people even say that anything that can't be packed up in your mizvada isn't worth having. One thing we know for sure, though, is that regardless of what you're putting in your luggage, you and it should be heading for the Holy Land. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast on that note. Tonight you can expect clear skies with a low of 57 or 14 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect a slight rise in temperature and strong winds and an expected high of 82 or 28 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.65 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.